Hi Sanjay, can you hear me? Sanjay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm Tarak here.
Hi Tarak, welcome.
He may be busy with something, looks like it.
Okay.
Can you guys turn your video? Let's just check that.
Yeah.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
Sanjay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. My audio was off, so now it's on.
Okay, so I've made you co-host.
Okay, all right. Let's see if you've got the panelist as a separate group here. Yeah, we can see participants 5. So, okay, so there is no option of putting a separate panelist group so that we can have a separate chat.
Some of the issues in the industry. Something is on, okay? Yeah.
So we can do one-to-one chat or everyone in the meeting. There is no option of message only to panelists. Is there any?
I think it might be on only in the webinar. So next time I'll check that.
Oh, okay. This is a meeting. Okay, I thought it was
Yes,
a webinar.
yes.
Yeah, it is only in webinar.
Hi Sangeeta.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, Sangeeta. So I see Dr. Tarak Goradia joined, and
I think Mom Banerjee was also in. She dropped out briefly, maybe.
all right, all right. Your face is cutting. I think you have to bring the computer down a bit.
Mine?
Soumya, yeah,
Okay.
that's better. Yeah. Otherwise, your face was cutting. That should be okay, I think. And audio is fine. My audio is fine.
Yeah, it's very clear.
All right, I'm using external mic.
Audio is usually not an issue. I think in Zoom it's quite good. When we were using global meeting, occasionally when you had video on, there would be a lag. Now I think in this it's not. Last week also we didn't face that. With video it's quite good.
Yeah. All right. I just received some corrections from Dr. Giridhar Babu. I just made that also in the introduction, so it's fine. How many registrations were there finally, Soumya? No, you're on mute, it seems.
36 I saw recently.
36, okay, all right, yeah. Giridhar Babu is asking for the link. I think he has not registered.
Oh, he had. Oh, okay.
I think do we have a
I
general?
thought that his name was there yesterday.
Okay, all right. He forgot, I think.
I'll do it again, yeah.
He has to check his email. Maybe we have to message him a bit. Here, just a minute.
The person who usually sends out our 15-minute before the talk reminders, he's not been well. And in fact, he tested, I think they tested him for COVID. Luckily, he was negative, but still unwell. I think that message or reminder message doesn't seem to have come.
All right.
The reminder message, last reminder message has the link directly so that everybody, then he got it.
Okay. Yeah, so Dr. Giridhar Babu is also in. We are waiting for
Venkata Suresh and
Venkata Suresh and who else?
Mom
Mom
Banerjee.
Banerjee.
Yeah.
Hello. Good
Yes,
evening.
we can
everyone.
hear you.
Yeah, she joined.
Good evening. Yeah, hi.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Giridhar.
Hello, ma'am.
You are trying to use the background image of Zoom, Dr. Giridhar.
No, I've been using this for a long time. If you want me to change it, I can change.
It works well when there's a green screen behind.
Okay.
But if it's a lot of conglomeration of objects, then it gets a bit confused at times, that algorithm.
Okay.
So you can see when you move your head, we will see a lot of stuff moving around your head. So that's not a very good thing.
Let me change it.
Yeah, I think natural will be better.
Hello, Mom Banerjee. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, this is Soumya.
Hi, this is Sanjay.
Sanjay, the moderator, is also in. Yeah, Venkata Suresh has joined us.
All right, now we have to see the Indian Standard Time of other people. 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah, 5:05 usually most people are in.
Okay, all right. Okay, the reminders didn't go, so we are slightly
I'll check.
unfortunately.
I'll do that right now.
Maybe. Can everybody open their
morning
videos?
Reminder, so I assumed he was well. He was, well enough to send messages. I didn't realize that he hasn't sent the 15-minute message.
Okay. Can everybody just test their mics a bit once?
Yeah.
One line, please. I will put on mute myself.
I think we are waiting to see who's going to take the turn. So I did Sangeeta. Am I heard?
Yes, you are clear.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Venkat. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you keep your phone a bit higher at your eye level, Venkat? Maybe it's
Okay.
it's moving a bit. So, do you have a stable platform to keep it on?
I will do that.
Yeah, that will be better. It's moving a lot. Okay, let's move to Dr. Giridhar Babu.
Hi. Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, yours is perfect, stable. Yeah. There's a lot of light coming from behind, so if there's a curtain, it'll help behind.
That requires a lot of architectural configuration.
Not required, not possible.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to Tarak.
Hi,
Tarak.
Hi, Sanjay. Tarak here. Hi, everybody.
Good to see you after so long. You've grown a beard.
Yeah, COVID has to make some impact, right?
I was going to say, who hasn't in lockdown days?
All right, so okay.
How many participants will be there apart from the panelists?
36 have registered, and a lot of people do not register there. The last minute they start looking for the links. So unfortunately, we didn't send the reminder 15 minutes before. So it could be that people might forget. A lot of people who registered also. So let's see. We have 12 participants already there in the bridge. Can we request everybody to go on mute, please?
Oh, I thought you can mute us all.
I can mute. I'll do that now.
Because I can touch No, what I was saying is that I have kept my phone in a position as you had asked for it. Now I don't want to touch it again.
Okay. I will try to, me and Soumya would try to mute people who forgot. But sometimes, we have to do a carpet bombing, mute all and then unmute people.
Yeah.
But that the problem there happens is that when you forget to, because we cannot unmute you directly, it's a consent based.
You correct.
Ask
That is
to
the
unmute.
problem.
Then you have to touch that unmute button.
That's right.
So right now everybody is muted. I think let me ask people to some people to unmute to see, test it out. Soumya, I have asked you to unmute. Maybe you should be unmuted anyway. Host.
No. I wanted to call and check, Darshan.
Okay. All right. I have requested Dr. Giridhar Babu to be unmuted.
Yeah, I am unmuted.
Oh, okay, great.
There we go. Well done.
We are waiting for a few more minutes because there were more registrants. So we're just expecting to all the registrants to join at least.
In about a minute's time, we should start.
All right, Soumya.
Yeah. Let's start.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Soumya, you want to start any introduction from your side, or should we start directly?
You can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to this Belief series of webinars. And today we've got a very interesting topic. Most of you in the audience would be either parents or teachers, I hope so. And that's why you've chosen to join. We've got a very interesting panelists here, a wide variety of skills and experience here. And I would like to introduce each one of them. I would like, before we start, everybody should be on mute, please, the participants. And even the panelists would be only coming, switching on their mic when they're speaking so that we do not have any background sound and disturbance. All right, so let's start. We have got the first panelist, Dr. Tarak Goradia. He's an alumni of IIT Bombay in computer science and then a PhD from New York University. He was one of the key forces behind the development and implementation of entrepreneurship mindset curriculum for high school children of Delhi government schools. He's also involved in extending the entrepreneurship mindset education by organizing entrepreneurship boot camps, competitions, incubators, and accelerators. Before these engagements with the Delhi government, Tarak had been mentoring education startups and providing cloud data analytics services. He has more than a couple of decades of experience with large MNCs, small startups, and internet companies. Tarak has an amazing insight to offer on improving our education system. So that's Dr. Tarak Goradia. Tarak, just wave your hand. Maybe people would like to see you. Who's there? Okay, all right. Next panelist is Miss Mom Banerjee. Could you just open your mic, Ms. Banerjee, so that people can see you quickly, whom I'm introducing? So, yeah, hi. She's founder of Samriddhi Trust and core group member of BNP. Samriddhi is a series of bridge schools serving children of migrant workers in Bangalore, Pune, and NCR. They are doing a very important job of picking up the unschooled migrant children in metros who otherwise would be growing up as the largest pool of illiterate children. And her organization fast tracks them into getting into regular schools by organizing classes for them so that they can come up to speed to the level of class they want to be admitted. And then she makes sure that the children are admitted into the mainstream schools. So that's Mom Banerjee for you. Next panelist is Miss Sangeeta Ravi. Could you just wave your hand and open your mic, please? So we know who's yeah, I think you're still on mute. So
no, I've unmuted myself.
All right, great. So Sangeeta Ravi is a senior associate in Janagraha. She holds a master's in financial management with a total 14 years of work experience in roles of trainer and financial auditor, mainly in Accenture. Being socially conscientious, she joined a non-profit sector the last 6 years with Janagraha, which is the creator of I Change My City app. People in Bangalore would be familiar with the app. Her association with schools and the education system has increased in the last 6 years. So welcome, Sangeeta. Next panelist, we have got Mr. Venkat Suresh Lola. Could you please unmute yourself, Mr. Lola, and just say something? Hi. He is head of the Leeds School in Bangalore, and he's former South India Regional Representative, AFS School Committee. He's a well-known educator with over two decades of experience with IB, CIE, CBSE, and ICSE curricula in India and UAE. He has been associated with organizations such as Global City International School, Bangalore, Ambassador School, Dubai, Oak Ridge International School, Hyderabad, and International School, Hyderabad. Mr. Lola specializes in implementing project-based learning and problem-based learning technologies, a program developed to inculcate effective learning and promote effective student engagement. Welcome, Mr. Lola. Next, we are going to our last panelist, Dr. Giridhar Babu. Could you just unmute yourself and wave?
Hello.
Yeah. So that's Dr. Giridhar Babu. He's a professor and head life course epidemiology unit IIPH, which is
Indian Institute of Public Health.
Indian Institute of Public Health. Thank you. Then he's a member of COVID Technical Advisory Group of Government of Karnataka and ICMR Task Force on Surveillance and Research also. So he's from the medical science side. So this is a slightly odd person out, but we've invited him because this is a COVID related extension of schooling, and we want to understand a bit of the problems there also. He has more than 90 scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals. He's worked with WHO as a consultant and contributed to reprioritization of diseases for surveillance in India. Dr. Giridhar is also visiting professor of the Maastricht University, Netherlands. Did I pronounce it well? His track record in public health over 2 decades is a clear testimony for excellence in research, policy development, and advocacy. So here's the 5 panelists. What we'll do is we've got a set of questions because everybody knows on what is online education, and everybody also is seeing their children in various forms and shapes being the schools trying to educate them through online means while they're closed. Now, it is a very interesting time right now, and we will start we have got a set of questions, and at the end of the talk, which will take about an hour or so, audience may post their questions on the chat. And we will pick up, if there is no repetitions and there are unique questions, we will pick up your questions and ask the panelists, the relevant panelists. So let's start with the questions. So my first question is to Dr. Giridhar Babu, because we're starting with COVID here. So there are conflicting messages from WHO that COVID-infected asymptomatic people may rarely spread the virus. What is your understanding on this? And is there any evidence that asymptomatic infected people also spread or do not spread the virus at the same rate as others, as infected people?
Yeah, just to give a perspective, symptomatic means those who have the symptoms which are part of the case definition of the COVID-19. Till yesterday, it was a fever, cough, something similar to upper respiratory disease, or even lower respiratory tract infection, which is like any pneumonia. So this was meant to be what as symptoms of COVID-19. So therefore, whoever does not have these symptoms were all clubbed together, including those who do not have any symptoms, and put in one big phrase called as asymptomatic persons. There was confusion already, but WHO issued a statement saying that they don't spread the disease. Later on, they regretted, and then they said, no, they do spread the disease. So here is what it is. So this group comprises of 3 people, 3 subgroups in it. The first small group is truly asymptomatic, which means they will not have any symptoms at all. So the person would not know that they are sick for any reason. And that is a very small proportion, and nobody knows what is the actual proportion because nobody has looked for it. It will vary. My best guesstimate is between 5 to 20%. But WHO yesterday again confused by saying it might be as high as 40%. So that's the range given out there. But the second major group comprises of people who are having atypical symptoms. So for example, loss of smell, loss of taste, weakness, chills, these were not supposed to be the upper respiratory tract infection earlier. However, by growing evidence and also CDC, Atlanta and other agencies including this as part of the symptoms of COVID, now the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has also included these as the symptoms as of yesterday's guideline. As a result of this, a major chunk of the asymptomatic group will be detected now because they are part of the case definition. The third group is what we call as pre-symptomatic. I know it gets confusing when you have so many prefixes and around symptomatic, but pre-symptomatic is the group who go on to develop symptoms later, which means that we need to be following up this group to know when they'll develop the symptoms. So now, who will spread the disease among this group? Both pre-symptomatic and those with atypical symptoms definitely have high viral load, and they also shed the virus, which means that both subgroups transmit the infection from one person to another. However, the group which is truly asymptomatic, we really don't know whether they transfer the virus from their body to others, either through respiratory droplet or through any other means. And now, if they don't cough intuitively, how will they spread? That's the question which most people ask. So one of the hypotheses is if they speak loudly or if you have close contact and when they speak, these droplets get exchanged, probably that's how the even truly asymptomatic people can transfer the infection from one to another. But how infectious are they compared to the other two subgroups? We don't know. Only prospective evaluations, studies done in that subgroup will tell us whether they'll be really spreading the disease or not. Now, as a public health person, I want to take a very simplistic and something which can be adopted at at a population level. So my assumption would be to treat everybody as having COVID-19 unless otherwise proved. So in order to do that, you don't need a test because test does not have 100% specificity. Even when the infection is present, the gold standard RT-PCR will leave out 30% of the people who truly have the infection. So,
Dr. Giridhar, I think the test and after treatment would be slightly out of scope of the discussion here because the audience here is waiting for.
No, let me complete because there is a lot of misconception about who spreads the disease. So we don't need certificates of who is positive to spread the disease or not. So the best public health message in either school setting or any close contact setting is not to insist on knowing the history, but to assume that everybody is having COVID-19. And then how do you prevent the spread? Very simple thing is to wear masks. Now, I'll give you an example of what happened in Israel. They started opening the schools. After opening the schools, they did not use the masks. And one child transferred infection to 150 people. So the child did not have symptoms. So therefore, using masks has shown to be very effective in reducing the transmission of infection more than 50%. So that's the kind of messaging. I'm coming to the school a little later when you ask me, but in general, we should be treating that everybody, whether symptomatic or asymptomatic, is going to spread the disease. So therefore, I'm going to use a mask whenever I'm in doubt. Only probably when I'm at home and when I know people have not gone out, I may not be using mask. But if I'm stepping out, I'll be using a mask. So those are my initial remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Girdhar. So in summary, I would say between the three categories of people, the first, we can't say anything because they're completely asymptomatic throughout their life cycle of disease. But the second and third categories, you are saying there is no evidence of any difference in rate of transmission. So we should assume both are having an equal rate of transmission, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. We've got a corollary to this question, and the first answer was quite elaborate. It almost answers the second one, but the second one is more quantitative. If you got, since you're an epidemiologist also, you might like to take a swing at this question. How much of a risk is added if we allow children to start going to schools in Bangalore? This is Bangalore specific. At this moment, we may have 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, I don't know, 15 lakhs school children in Bangalore today. And all of them, if they start going to schools, and we can't expect them to wear masks all the time in the school and have social distancing. So you have to forget that assumption. In that situation, assume that situation, we open the schools in next week or 2 weeks. Can you quantify the risk which is added to the entire city?
Now, I don't know the real numbers of school-going children in Bangalore.
Assume 10 lakhs.
So if it is 10 lakhs, we have to understand Bangalore has been clear of this kind of wide outbreaks seen in Mumbai and Delhi. Opening up schools will just open the floodgates of inviting infection to every household. They will not get infected. They may not even have symptoms, but they will transfer the infection to people at home, elderly, and those who are in the school. So it is two-way. If one child is infected, all the other children are infected. And if they get the infection from the home, they can go to the school, and they get from school, they'll bring back to the home. So the assumption here is that Indian children will be similar to the Western or elsewhere where their immunity levels are as strong as the West. I don't really agree with that assumption. The reason is 1 in 3 Indian children are undernourished. And undernourished means they have lower hemoglobin, they have all lower levels of micronutrients, which means that they have poor immunity. And this disease is known to strike people with poor immunity. So therefore, whether our children will be affected or spared will depend on whether their immune system is strong or not. We don't know because we have not tested most of the children in most schools, 1. 2, which schools do we open? Primary, secondary, what their immunity levels are, what is the seroprevalence in children, whether they're already infected or not, how they're going to respond. That kind of local evidence we don't have in India, unless those kind of research is initiated now, very immediately. Like we have done a national seroprevalence study just in the last 2 weeks, covering the entire breadth and width of the country. So if Bangalore wants to start the school, the least we can do is at least see what kind of immunity levels are here and what kind of infection levels are here in the community, and whether the community is good enough to reopen the schools. So these are very complicated questions. No one knows the answer. When you don't know the answer, can you take the risk of opening the schools? Is life of the children and also the people at home compared to the education year and their academic performance of having to start immediately? I mean, can we mitigate this by postponing the start bit later? Those kind of risk benefit we need to consider.
We'll come to that, doctor. Right now, we are just assuming that the rate of infection in the children in Bangalore is the same as there is in the adults. So we can take that as a valid assumption. So, and we also know that there are about 4 to 5 times or maybe 10x people who are infected but not detected yet. So the same rate, if you assume for children, 10 lakh children, maybe some numbers would be in your mind out of the back of the envelope calculations. And with the rate of spread in the school, could you do an estimation of, not now, maybe after the end of the call, to what would be the rate of growth in Bangalore city after we open the schools, all the schools, high schools, primary, everything?
Yeah, so one might take a look at modeling, but then I'm sure everybody in this group are aware how all the model assumptions have been and how the projections have been for this country. So when you don't know the transmission dynamics clearly and assume and project a number, you might always give a wrong estimate. That's one. Number two, the number two is, I think we need to be prepared for the worst case scenario, but use the principles of prevention in the first place, so that we don't go and meet with the worst case scenario at all. So that's what Bangalore did, even with the overall management.
All right. Thanks a lot. That was insightful. Okay, now we are moving towards more of our core topic, which is online education. We have a first question which comes because of the, again, press coverage, recent press coverage around the Karnataka state government's decision to ban classes, online classes, up to class 5. And then they say up to class 7th, and then they're retracting that statement. This question is, I would like Mr. Venkat Lola to answer this. He's the head of school. So how long do you think the online model will continue for middle school and high school children? I mean, what is your news from the education department or whatever government you are in touch with? Will things go back to normal, or there are any permanent changes foreseen in the model of imparting education? That's part 2 of the question. Let's start with the part 1 first. Mr. Lola.
Yeah, I know it's an interesting question, very difficult to answer. In the sense, see, just like each one of you sitting up in this panel and even the parents watching all of us, COVID scenario has been giving the same experience to the schools and the school leaders, right? We are no exception. We are all seeing it for the first time in our life as well. Now, what I feel is, when there is an epidemic of this, extent worldwide, causing so many deaths, I think it would be a right initiative for all stakeholders to sit like this, like how we are doing, and then come up to a consensus to see what is good for children, right? Moving to any extremes, I don't think it would be right, banning or not banning, that's not the thing, I mean, definitely all of us know that kids today at every home are exposed to a certain degree of screen time, whether you agree, disagree. That's truth, right? Now, how do we ensure that kids get exposed to the right kind of information through whom? Whether parents would help them, whether the schools would help them, I think is the biggest question which we should all see. I personally feel there is a serious lack of a framework, a dynamic framework. I'll just give you an example. See, a few schools, of course, have started teaching as early as March, because there was pressure from parents that just help us up, I mean, when they did start, of course, the initial interest of children for a week would be high to see something new technology, and then it waver off, right? So I think this is the time where all the intellectuals, of different fronts come together, sit and see what's the best way and what would be the apt instructional framework, right? Take everybody into confidence. I agree with the doctor, what he mentioned right now. See, people at home are at risk, kids are at risk. At the same time, at school, teachers are also at risk, when they meet children from different groups. So, I mean, I think we have to take a whole rounded approach to this problem rather than just saying, okay, banning, not banning, that's not the question. Now, how do we make use of the screen time effectively? Of course, when we look at both asynchronous and synchronous kind of sessions, they have their own pros and cons, right? Schools can still plan up lessons in a way that parents can be a part along with the kids and ensure learning happens, right? Your second question about the middle schools, how long it will take? As of now, we have very little clarity on this subject as well. What we were told is to at least prepare a term in advance for the middle school level, and start teaching online, right? Those were the instructions coming in. And see, I will not blame anybody at this point of time, neither the government, nor the parents, nor the schools. Because see, everybody is in a state of confusion when they themselves are not aware of what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, these decisions are popping up abruptly. Also, I'm sure you must have noted the local government, the Honorable Minister has constituted a committee to sit and then work on framework guidelines, which can be shared with schools. Because again, there was another thought that, okay, how long will this distant learning will continue, whether it is 6 months, 1 year, 4 months. So at least I'm glad now people have woken up. They are taking steps. They have asked us to come up with some sort of a framework which is going to help up students. I feel if we take a middle stand would be the most apt solution for now, right? Project-based learning approach would be very, very apt because children can still do a lot of things with the materials used at home, right? And let's not say that in India, technology is not available in rural areas. Today, every third person has got an Android phone in the country, and people use it all over the country, right? And of course, television channels are around. So I think we need to come up with some solutions, with all the people sitting together and working with each other, rather than criticizing, you're right, you're wrong. I think that's not the right approach now.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Lola. That was quite a detailed view which you gave. Thanks a lot. Could I ask Ms. Mom Banerjee to take up the same question if she has some other view around it? Ms. Mom Banerjee.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's not that I oppose with what was said, but I strongly believe that, this banning business of government has to go. And it's a very strong view because it's not about only banning online education, it's about banning anything which comes in the way of, some amount of progress. Nobody is saying that online education is the best way of education. It may not be the ideal, but when you do not have any other alternatives, and when we all know that there is no surety of when we can go back to the physical mode of education, the traditional way which we used to follow, then whatever we can do, we should be able to do. Now, there can be moderations, there can be regulations, there can be, we just heard that there can be deliberations. But it's like, just because I cannot provide digital education to the underprivileged, so nobody should get any education, is definitely not a go-to option. Lot of children I spoke to, and I would say that I represent a body of 4,500 children myself. I have been talking to them. They come from the lowest strata of the society. They are from families who are West speakers, manual laborers, construction laborers, migrants. So even they have, when we had approached them and when we have started to kind of, reach out to them through WhatsApp, through phone interventions, through sending them materials which they can again, solve and take a picture and send it back, sending them videos, some amount of online interactions. They were just more than happy to be engaged because, so if you really take a poll of children across strata, across age groups, a little bit of nurturing is only helping them. They are liking it very much. Some parents have issues, some situations have a lot of issues. So everything is difficult, but just because it is difficult and just because, screen is not the ideal way. So if you say that screen is not good for health, of course, Corona is not any good for health also. And of course, cigarette smoking is also not good for health. Now, how can you ban it? Like, could you ban cigarettes because it was not good for health? So banning business has to go. That's my strong opinion. and the children needs to be taken as a stakeholder to these discussions. We cannot only discuss things among experts and among schools and leave out the primary stakeholder, that is children. What do they have to say about the options of no education or no engagement at all to some amount of engagement as much as it is possible. So this is my response to the Karnataka government's move on the banning of
thanks a lot. And it's such a fresh view coming from mom herself, who's a champion of poor children. Still, she's supporting online education. We'll come to poor children at the end. We've got some questions there. But your point is absolutely well taken, that just because some extreme poverty kids cannot get online education, we should not ban it for others. So like people are not getting food to eat, that does not mean everybody doesn't eat food. It's almost like that. Okay, all right. Let's go to our next question. Now we deep dive a bit in online education, because we've got some experts here who can talk about the real types of online education. So broadly, just for the audience who are not aware, there are two main types of online education: flipped classroom and live virtual classes. Of course, there is a Coursera MOOC model, which we are not talking about here, because that's completely recorded, and all the sessions there is no live interaction at all there. So that is possible for adult audience. We are not talking about adult audience here, adult students here. So we are talking about there has to be a live component, live supervision, or live not supervision, I would say, live interaction required sometimes. Flipped classroom allows live interaction, as well as live virtual classroom obviously has a live interaction. So my question to Dr. Tarak Goradia, who is an eminent educationist, and he's done a lot of work in Delhi schools also, is that which type of model is suitable now that we're going to definitely go into online model for a long time, and this may not be reversible. Which is more suitable, and which type of subjects we should insist on flipped classroom, and for what subjects or classes or age group we should continue with the virtual classroom or virtual teaching environment, virtual lecture. Over to you, Dr. Tarak. I think you are still mute. Let me unmute you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, just give me a second. Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that this flipped classroom and virtual classroom, they are sort of two extremes, not extremes, but only two. There's actually a lot of gray in between. And so I would like to speak about that because that is what we have done very recently. Because of COVID, we started this experiment. So I got this opportunity to work on this experiment thanks to the progressive AAP government in Delhi, that I was able to, we are currently experimenting with 8 different hybrid models of online in interaction. And when I say hybrid model, it is truly hybrid. And why do we have to come up with this hybrid? Because even now, students who have internet access can't do streaming class for a long period of time. Either because they don't have enough internet, or their phone is not there for a long time, or all kind of situations happen. The phone network doesn't last long enough, and almost everybody uses the phone. They don't have computer and bandwidth. Specifically, when I'm talking about the government school students in the Delhi government, which is about several lakh of them. So we have to come up with this hybrid model of engagement online. And so on the one hand, I have this WhatsApp only model, completely asynchronous interaction model using only WhatsApp, where what happens is that the instructions and the content gets given by way of videos or instruction text or messages, and the back responses also come via video, text, and audio messages. But it is completely asynchronous. However, they do set aside some time of the day when they respond very quickly to each other, and then the rest of the time, the day, the teachers and students respond when available. So this is one extreme. On the other hand, we have this one partner organization. So by the way, this is in the context of entrepreneurship mindset education, that we are trying to run a boot camp for students for this summer break between June and July. And what we want to do is to inculcate the entrepreneurship mindset. So we have got a bunch of partner organizations who are delivering this education as such. So on the other end, there is one partner organization who is using online class like in Zoom along with WhatsApp. So you think about, there is a Zoom class going on the way it is right now, and I can type something in a Zoom chat if I want, but I also have WhatsApp. So I'll tell you how they use it, so to become very clear. They ran a very nice 5-minute, only in just 5 minutes, they conducted a rapid fire engagement with the students, concurrently using WhatsApp. So what they do is that they ask these rapid fire questions. In some questions, you're supposed to type on Zoom chat. In some questions, you're supposed to draw something in your notebook, take a photo and send it by WhatsApp. And it was worked beautifully. Within 5 minutes, so much of energy and excitement was created among students. So I personally feel that via these experiments, we would learn so much about how we can do a blending of variety of models, rather than sticking to just one thought about having a lecture or no lecture. There are so many engagements there. I have more examples, but I'll stop right now here.
Yeah, okay, that's excellent. Actually, when you told about the photograph, taking a picture and sending, I mean, there are so many ways. Right now, we're doing it this way because we didn't have time. Maybe you didn't have time to get systems developed. But I think entrepreneurship, there will be some entrepreneurs who will be working on this, and maybe they'll integrate with Zoom, where your handwritten stuff is immediately available on the same platform.
Funny thing is that it is good that they are not integrated, because Zoom is already too complex for me to go around navigate. Sometimes simplicity is very important.
All right, yeah. Sometimes two different systems are okay, because Zoom is only focused on video conference, and we have a separate system for interactivity for hand-drawn stuff. Great. So we would request Mr. Lola to give his views around these models, or if he has got a hybrid model, something which Tarak talked about, or something else. Thank you.
Yeah, I should say Mr. Tarak has responded even my answer in a way beautifully. See, what we did is we did a summer engagement program right from the age group of 4 to about 12. And what we did, it was about 4 weeks. And every week we had a dynamic system, wherein we can sustain the interest of children, because like I mentioned to you earlier, if we do everything in one style, monotonous way, children won't find it interesting, because they are used to see the creative approaches of a teacher in a classroom. So now when we are doing it virtually, I feel the most apt approach right now in India would be a hybrid model, neither going left or right. Because see, like he mentioned, there are a lot of issues related to gadgets, their availability, irrespective of the student economic status. There are a lot of challenges. Sometimes even the servers might not be working. So in that case, I feel a blend of both asynchronous and synchronous approach would be needed. Like for example, the schools can make project designs, send them to students well in advance, so that they do small activities at home and keep their results ready, for the Zoom class to begin. And when the class comes in, they will all share the outcomes of the activity, right? That's how learning also enhances really well. It's all about doing the learning. that could be one way. And then there are a lot of e-portals, like for example, BrainPop. It's an American site. During the Corona time, they have actually made the whole app free. So anybody, irrespective of, government school student or a private school student, anybody can create their own login, and there are lakhs of videos available for children to learn and then do. So we used different approaches. 1 week we took a project-based approach. 1 week we did an online virtual teaching and learning approach with sending in the related materials in advance to the students so that they are ready for the time of the session. And then the third week we tried through these online engagement apps, which have very interesting stuff. And also, we also did try online gaming as well. Now, of course, you all must be knowing there are a lot of these international museums, zoos, safaris. They're all open and free, available online. So I think this is the time where teachers and schools and parents and everybody need to be more creative, right? Help each other, find out which are all the aspects that are available for free, share these resources, and plan the lessons wisely. I think that's what is very, very important. And of course, see, usually schools improve their existing lessons to teach for the subsequent year. But then what I would request right now people to do is to look for a fresh outlook, of planning, so that this scenario is very different and we cannot have the previous year's scenario or the kind of lessons happening now. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Quite a lot, quite good points you got, Mr. Lola. Just one point, I think before we move to the next question, is that we are wanting to focus here on projects. Project-based maybe is possible only for high school children. At the middle school level, you need children to practice what you've given, teachers have given, or maybe classwork, etc. Now, that is where lecture-based starts failing and flipped classroom starts gaining more importance. Where maybe
may I just suggest? May I just suggest?
Sure.
Yeah, I do agree with you.
People think that projects are only possible at the higher level. For example, if you have to teach a kindergarten child as to how things would float and sink, use a carrot and then a lady's finger, right? Show that small demonstration at home. The concept can be understood. That can be a small project, right?
Sure.
So I feel these have to be designed age appropriate, right? And our teachers are capable, our parents are capable, and we have a lot of resources available online these days.
All right. Okay. So, Tarak, do you want to add anything here? Sorry, you're on mute, so I have to unmute you.
So this is a problem with the app. It doesn't tell me that I'm mute, right? It should.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was going to add was that sort of activities. You give them small activities. And one thing I want to add is that this may actually evolve our education for the better, rather than the previously the textbook-based learning. We will move to activity-based learning using things at home, and that would be beneficial to the children in the longer run because they would see practical application. So teachers would have to do a lot of unlearning and learning to make this happen.
A lot of creativity needed from the teacher side and the curriculum designers. So long as we use the same curriculum, same textbooks, we'll be stuck in between. So you're right that a lot of creativity is needed here. All right, thanks a lot. I think that's a lot of details around the models of teaching, basically between the two models. We have another question now. Now, this is going into the area of benefits, pros and cons. So let's first start with what elements of a physical class are not possible to be replicated in an online live class. So let's assume because for months together, or at least a year or so, we will continue to have live virtual classes till we have many such creative ideas around project-based and active. Ultimately, that will still occupy 20%, 10% time, and major part would still remain on the classroom or the lecture style of teaching. So what is the major difference between so let's not talk about the obvious differences that you can walk out and you can run and in physical class, those are all accepted differences. But in the classroom, what are the major differences, if assuming both are identical, virtual classroom as well as sitting in the classroom? So what are the major differences? Tarak, I think you can start with that.
Yeah, so I want to think of it from both perspectives, from the perspective of the school teacher as well as from the student. So let's say from a teacher perspective, the first thing is, I don't get a welcome, right? There's no good morning, ma'am, right? It doesn't start that way. So there's nothing. I come to this classroom of kids going back and forth. It does give me a little not so strong motivation when I start a class. Then my peripheral vision, right? In the classroom, in the physical classroom, I use my peripheral vision. Here I'm using only this narrow vision here in front of my screen. And there's a lot that I miss when I don't use my peripheral vision. I don't do a quick walk through the class to see how everybody's doing. It's not so easy to do that here in the thing. Then I can easily bring back in a physical thing those who are snoozers or wanderers. I can quickly bring them back. Again, that is harder to do that in an online setting. Similar about observing withdrawal, students withdrawing or exuberant students from their body language. I can't figure that out here online because it's so hard to see their body language in the tiny little blobs that are there. And some of them have to turn the video off because the bandwidth is too much, so I can't see them at all. So these are the things from a teacher perspective. And from a student perspective, the number one is that, I don't get a time with my friends in class and in school. That gup-shop, huddles, then fun games, just chasing each other, peer help, motivation, all kind of stuff that happen outside of the actual teacher time between students, all kind of stuff, fun pranks, everything. I mean, that is an essential part of learning. Let's not forget that. Right? So that I miss as a student. And also I don't get back benches. Every bench is a front bench here, or it could be potentially a front bench. So, from a student perspective, these are the kind of things that I kind of see between teacher and student perspectives.
Excellent summarization. I think you covered exact differences between online class and a virtual class. Although there would be innovations there also, and we might have digital mischief and all those things, but of course, the physical part is different. Mr. Lola, you want to add anything here, which is not covered?
Yeah, very briefly.
Like you said, I recently, when I was talking to students, asking them, how are you guys managing mischief? They did talk about digital mischief. They know how to create groups and talk to each other, and they are having fun in their own way, right? Including primary kids. And note that, please. That's why banning would harm more, because they don't even get an opportunity to meet all their friends. Number one. Okay, just quickly, one more point I need to tell. See, I think students would be able to quickly adapt to an online system. Because they're all digital natives. The biggest challenge is going to be for the teachers, basically. Right, who are not digital natives, who have been teaching for a very long time. Now, for them to understand student behavior is a very, very big challenge. Now, for this, I would give actually a suggestion, basically. Normally, what we do is, even I've been teaching all 20 years of my work at schools. I interact a lot of time with students before and after the classes, whenever they're free. So I think that's very important. Teachers need to gain this confidence and trust with the child. So I think at least we should all try building this virtually. When we start building this virtually, if a child has a problem, at least he would open up to the teacher to tell that, look, I have this problem. Right? I think we need to now look at ways of communicating rather than complaining. I would say, look at an approach where you can reach out to students more often, get to know more, right? Get to understand them better, gain their trust, then learning would happen.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Mr. Lola. Ms. Mom Banerjee, do you want to add anything? I think you're on mute. Or...
Yeah, so pertaining to the question of what can and cannot be done between physical classes and virtual classes, I would say that, and again, I'm representing the children. They themselves have said that they are missing the game of football they used to have in the early morning. They're missing the murals which they had painted together in the school wall, or they have missed maybe a lab session, a session where they have experimented together. So all the teamwork which happens in the classroom, sometimes the cultural programs, the management of some cultural programs, sometimes they have to manage things. So they're missing a lot of that. But contrary to the fact that yes, they definitely miss all that. But I have a question in terms of how many schools actually make the children do all those things, even otherwise in physical classes. So if there is a situation where there is a combination of online interactions, mainly for instruction-based, video-based conceptual understanding, and they actually get to mix only for doing project work together or playing a match of football together or doing a lab session together in very small batches. So that can be a very good hybrid option, wherein the things for which you need physical presence and working together happens in a physical environment whenever it is possible, whereas the other modes can be online or through whatever hybrid technological devices possible. But what is absolutely not possible in online section is what the children need the most. I have realized in the last 9 years of working children that when we have asked that what exactly makes you come to school, they say it's the love of the teachers. The teachers' acceptance and love and the hug or the smile, that is what actually makes them join to the classes. Of course, along with the students themselves being able to mix together. So I think the emotional quotient which grows in a physical, loving environment of a school is the one which will be completely missed with a screen between yourself and your friends and teachers.
We accept that, and I think that there's a separate question assigned for the social interaction part. So this question was only on the classroom. So yeah, thanks a lot for telling us in advance your views around it, and for sure they are very important. Just to flip this question around, the other side of the question is also important, is that now again comparing apples to apples, so please do not bring in things which are not possible and which is not apple to apple comparison, is that what are the things which are the new possibilities in virtual classes which are not possible in physical classes. So let's start with Tarak, please. And let's not compare with recorded classes, because the first example we get is you can replay and you can rewind and you can check it again. Oh, that's not virtual classes. That's recorded.
So I mean, the things that I have learned in this past 2 months of engaging with students, seeing different mentors engage with students, I've seen these real examples. So they are right fresh in my mind. So as I mentioned, one thing was concurrent responses from students via chat or via WhatsApp, right? So within 5 minutes, I can do something that is not possible in a physical world to do that quickly. Then there's something else that I started doing it myself. When I'm in a meeting, I'm able to go to a gallery view and observe somebody's body language, which I was not able to previously do without staring, right? I mean, being seen as staring. In a classroom, I have to do eye contact or stare or from a thing. Here I'm able to see whether the student is actually interested or not interested based on the body language of the student. Although his eyes may be focused on the screen, but I can observe a lot more there. The other nice thing which some of the tools offer is forming small groups quickly. If you want to have a question prompt for the students to discuss among themselves, then you can form 4 groups in a matter of seconds, have them discuss and come back to it in a very nice manner, which is a nice feature. What is also easy is enforcing discipline, right? You mute somebody. If the guy is bothering too much, it's easy to mute. You can't do that in the real world. And also, students, you can send a separate message to the students. Of course, they can send messages among themselves too, which is another, it could be a pain if they're just chit-chatting among themselves without you knowing. Then the students, here is another thing. Students who are shy, right? In classroom, they don't want to raise their hand and speak. Here, they feel a little more comfortable in typing some text if they know some answer. So that is a good thing. I would say that is possible. Anyway, having said this, all of these take time for, as Mr. Lola said, the teacher to get used to. The students will learn quickly. I've seen teachers, even young teachers struggle to manage all this complex bunch of features. It takes a lot of time. Right now, just to do a unmute was a problem. Right, and then one of the parties, I think mom was dark before, now she came to light. So these little challenges are there, part of online stuff.
Excellent summary, and I never thought about that staring part, which is absolutely new to me also. You can watch students, and of course the shy student phenomena is addressed very well in virtual classes. Mr. Lola, do you want to add anything which Tarak has missed?
Yeah, I'll just add one point. I would say, I think this is a perfectly good opportunity for us to teach both adults and kids digital etiquettes, right? Along with the digital etiquettes, we can even teach them how to stay safe online, right? Which we were not doing it earlier with so much of attention. But I think this would be the right time for us to do it because kids are online for a very long time.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
Miss Banerjee, you want to add anything now that your light is good enough there? No, you're on mute this time. Sorry, I think I have muted you, so I have to unmute you.
Yeah, so I was saying that it was a primitive technical challenge of not lighting up the room to get the light on my face. So what I would say is what the students told me that what is now possible in a technology-driven space or in a remote learning space is that they can actually avoid the long traffic snarls of Bangalore and get into a classroom in a jiffy. It's like just on a start up a button. So that is something which is possible today, which was not possible, before, without making the 1.5 hour and 1.5 hour journey to and fro to school. What they said is possible today is actually sharing memes and jokes about the teachers, without getting a rap from the teachers, because that can be done on the side on a WhatsApp. So there are things which I think the online education is also being able to do is a lot of flexibility in identifying that which child learns best in which mode, like whether whether a one-on-one chat with the child works better or a group environment works better, whether video works better or one-on-one works better, and you can tune the same class in a different way to each and every class and make it more tailor-made for the child, which is definitely not possible in a 45-minute one-way classroom with, say, 40 students, 62 students together.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mom. We have another panelist, Sangeeta. So we've not yet asked any question. I think we was waiting for this question to be addressed to Sangeeta now. So Sangeeta, could you just please unmute yourself? And what is your view around this question around what is the positive thing of virtual learning? What are the opportunities which can be leveraged in a virtual setup, online learning?
So my previous panelists have covered it all. The two things that I would like to highlight here that the new possibilities is number one, this involves a lot of parental guidance as well. So use it to the positivity. So if I have to give you an example, if there are parents who are already doctors or engineers or a pilot, any field, use their know-how to talk to the students in telling how their future looks like. So if I'm all talking this from a mom's perspective, as a mother's perspective, where one of the pilot had come and addressed how was his work experience, and this was 3 years back when my son was 6 years old, and even today he says, "Mom, I want to become a pilot." So a person who's coming and talking about the work experience can have an impact on a child. So use the know-how of such parents over here is what I would like to say. The other thing, now we can connect to virtually any part of the world. I just think only about Bangalore. So somebody from Chennai could also come and tell me how astronomy works in their setup, or somebody from IIT can come and talk to me about how the project can go better or worse, or somebody from UP can come and tell me how to do an on-terrace gardening. So virtually it opens up to many venues. These are the two things I wanted to
All right.
add on.
Thanks a lot, Sangeeta.
Yeah, I would like to just add
sure.
one more thing here, which is that the reach. If you have a good event, let's say we had a live entrepreneur interaction with Abhiraj Bal in Delhi. I mean, he was not from, I mean, he's in Delhi, but in some other part. But the whole of India could watch it. So it was not limited just to Delhi government school students. So that is also about the
Sure.
reach.
Yeah, the reach, the class size can be huge. All right, great. Now we come to some sensitive matters around this online education. So with the reduction of children's interaction, and this was touched upon by a couple of panelists, social networking may have increased, by the way, through the digital medium, but are children going to lose their social skills because of lack of physical interaction? And how do you, and of course they're going to lose, so I mean, this is an obvious question, but how do you make sure children's non-academic development is not impacted due to continued physical isolation? So let's start with Tarak.
Yeah, so here is somewhere that I just want to first give a short information that my wife, she's a specialist, Dr. Ushma Goradia. In fact, I'm sitting in her clinic, and she deals with all kind of disorders like autism, ADD, and other things like that. And one of the observations that she's made is that there is a strong correlation between lack of physical bond between parents and the infants, or sort of a childish interaction that the grandparents and parents have with very young infants. If that interaction or the physical bonding was missing, then there is a higher chance of having autism-like disorders in there. And so I had a conversation with her about this particular topic as to what will this do. And so one of the things that she says that online class requires far more mental strain than being in a classroom, physical classroom. The kids have to, if they're paying proper attention, it requires a lot more strain on their mind. So if you do two extended long classrooms, it will show up in their irritability and so on and so forth. But the other thing she said is that if this goes on for a long time, I mean, obviously, a few months is one thing, right? But if it goes on, let's say, for a year, you're essentially depriving all the stuff that I mentioned earlier, right? Gupshup, the physical contact, is that so many things that you do, and your body needs that, your mind needs that as child. So they would come up with some sort of syndrome later in their lives, and it might be called COVID syndrome or something like that. But it is possible that if you deprive them of that. So what we kind of together came up is that we are investing a whole lot on health infrastructure for treating COVID patients, right? We are. we are spending so much energy and money and everything in there. We need to invest in infrastructure, systems and processes and come up with some innovative ideas. I think Mom referred that for some hours, some students can go to school and do the things that they cannot do online, right? In a protected, in a safe manner, so that the transmission chances are reduced, whatever necessary. Let's make it happen. Let's not deprive them of this essential learning mechanism that nature has, and the body and the mind both need that mechanism. So that is sort of my message from my wife, who is an expert in this field. Yeah.
No, that's quite insightful, and definitely there would be issues, and investments would be needed in socially isolated, physically isolated. I can't say socially isolated.
Physically isolation is the term there, right?
Is the correct term, yeah. All right, I think we're slightly running behind our schedule. We've got 10 minutes delay here. So since we've got 20 minutes left, we've got 2 more questions, and then we'll open the questions for the audience. One question which all the parents would be interested to ask is that parents are not sure if their children are attending their online classes lecture seriously, or are they just chatting with each other throughout the lecture? Because this is more open than in the physical class. They will get caught if they continuously talk to their neighbor. And what should teachers do to ensure attention of children in a virtual environment? And what should parents also do? Tarak, first you, please.
I was hoping to get a break. Can somebody else go first?
Yeah, sure. So I had kept a sequence. Yeah, Mr. Lola, please, you.
Yeah. So see, basically, I think the most important aspect here is the trust between the teacher and the child, right? That they should work on first. If I like my teacher, I would pay attention. I would listen to what she is doing, right? That's very, very important. And I think this is what we miss out most of the times. Number one. Number two, the lessons have to be really, really engaging. That's the biggest challenge. If the lesson is not engaging, of course, children are not going to pay attention and they would do all the pranks. And I feel it is right. I mean, how much time can you hold somebody to sit in front of a system, doing nothing actively? So I think the whole thing is get the trust, make the lessons engaging, come up with a framework which is very dynamic, which is what I said in the beginning, very important. And here, like both Tarak and Miss Mom, both of them have mentioned this about emotional quotient. Keep that in mind all throughout, right? Because I think once we do these 3 things should be in order, right? Kids would, of course, make fun. Absolutely. I mean, see, again, sometimes even teachers should take it lightly. They should have an official fun time in that online session, right? When you give it officially, let them have fun. It's all right, because they are not physically interacting, right? And just imagine somebody seeing only parents throughout the day for months, right? And not meeting friends. It's taking a tough toll on these little souls. So okay. we need to allow them to be naughty.
Yeah, good point, Mr. Lola. But given the fact that the 80-20 rule applies here also, like 20% teachers would be brilliant and students would pay attention to them, and there would be 80% teachers who would not be as brilliant and students would be distracted. Now, the avenues of distraction here is huge compared to physical classroom. Physical classroom, there are some other avenues, but it's difficult for them to get distracted because teacher is watching. So the question was, now maybe I'll address to Tarak here and back to Mr. Lola quickly, if you can think about 1 or 2, like fun part is a good thing you brought, but you are separating fun from class. So you can't extend fun for 50% of the class time. You have a limited time. So think about something which is during the class you can have while learning and students are not distracted. Tarak, would you like to add something?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple points. I won't repeat what has been said. So I think there are so many engagement possibilities online which has to be built into the pedagogy, not necessarily by the teacher, but supervisor who is creating the content. For example, it can be both fun as well as knowledge checking, so pop quiz, polls, or you, as I mentioned, right, you draw a emoji which represents you on your notebook and take a photo and send it on WhatsApp. That's a super exciting thing. Suddenly all the classroom kids are engaged. So they have to come up with even the answer which you have to write. You got to make it kinesthetic. Kinesthetic meaning where they have to use their hands or something else. Don't make it just watch and type, because that does not use all the faculties that they're used to doing. So have them stand up, do something, and we take a video shot of all of you together standing up, doing some gesture. Come up with all these innovative ways of engaging with the students. And one other small point is that, having said all these things, there is a audit trail of sorts that the children know that there is an audit trail as such. But more importantly, it is important for the teacher to observe, and maybe have an assistant whose sole job is to observe and then tell the teacher who is withdrawing, who is this, and then the teacher to have one-on-one session with that person, with the student, because you need to, as Mr. Lola said, build up the trust. But how do we do that? By having an additional person, because a teacher can't do both jobs.
Excellent. Yeah, just a teaching assistant model in colleges in US. Same model.
Some observer who observes the class, takes down notes, and then figures out how.
Brilliant suggestion. Mr. Lola, anything which you thought about?
Yeah, those are actually brilliant points which he just mentioned now. I'll just add two more things, right? Maybe the class beginning and the ending could have something dynamic like music and dance, maybe 1-2 minutes, not for a very long time. For these are for the younger kids. They would enjoy, they would get kinesthetically active, right? I mean, it is possible. And usually we also do while teaching lesson also, when the class looks very bored, okay, just cheer them up, make them do something, right? Move out of the way and come back to the lesson. So that's possible. And one more point, what I would like to add, of course, an assistant observing all the students and giving feedback to the teacher would be of great help. What teachers can also do is they can seek feedback from the teachers who have taught these kids the previous year. So get a bit of their background, their portfolios, if the portfolios are maintained. Otherwise, at least get some feedback, or let the teachers talk to the student, talk to the parents, and just gain some insights about the child before the lesson.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Sangeeta, do you have any other idea from the corporate world or from the other world which you're bringing in here?
They summed it up all for us. So that's what we do. I do a lot of civic literacy topics for the 6th grade to 10th grade. So as Tarak sir and Venkat sir rightly mentioned, we'll have to have them physically do something to be paying attention. So that is one important thing that the teacher should follow. And I don't want to name the school group that is doing what Tarak sir just mentioned, where there is an observer who is observing the session and the teacher is just doing his or her job. So schools are following that, and that pays off well.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so now we move to the last question, and we've got some questions coming already on the chat, which I'll open up shortly. Last question is primarily focused on Ms. Mom Banerjee, but we'll have others pitching in if required. So if online classes become a permanent feature, which is likely to happen in urban areas at least, how do the very poor urban children get educated? So they might be left out. And assuming the need of a computer and a broadband is essential for a good quality interactive class, what are your suggestions? Computer could be replaced by mobile, but that's a bit of a gray area there. Subject for discussions. What are your views around that?
Okay, so I'm tempted to give a one-line answer to this question, although it may sound very simplistic, but I really believe in it. That when we say that online education, if it is the only mode, And if that is the way education has to go forward, maybe in a hybrid way, or with a combination of physical and online classes. And then if we come up with an excuse saying, but then our poor students, in the government schools, in the any other strata, the rural areas, or whatever it is, do not have access to the bandwidth or the device, then how can we do it? Then the simple answer to it is give it to them. Like today, you cannot say that people are poor, so they since they don't have food, then what do we do? Migrants do not have the money to go back to home. Then what do? We just do what is needed. That's it. I think it's high time, and it's a great opportunity which has actually been showing off our broken system, the system wherein the government have been investing in such a way, and the GDP is growing in such a way that we are I think we are the fifth.
I think you've gone on mute, Mom. What happened? You are on mute. Hello. I think she's forgotten the. Okay.
Yeah, you accidentally sent me to mute too. So.
Oh, sorry. Could be.
60 seconds on how much we spend on education. So, if there is a will, there is a way, and you have to have a will right now. If today, and it's not COVID alone, the great digital divide has to get off. You cannot, keep one section of the society oiled while the other is not. The whole country will just, come to a closing point, given the population spread we have. So my point, very simply put, is that since we do not have the required bandwidth, we do not have the required trained teachers, we do not have the devices reached out to the students, we have to simply find out ways to make sure that it reaches them. We cannot say electricity is not there in a rural village, so how would they switch on their lights? They should. So how would we do it? So what we say is that we have to reach electricity to them.
Got it. So you are saying bring up digital connectivity to the level of electricity, make it essential commodity, subsidize it for poor people, and let it go. You can't say that they have to afford the market rates or etc. Fine, got it. Including the computer.
Education is supposed to be free, and then if education has to go in the virtual mode, then that also has to be invested on by the government, by the CSRs, by whoever is responsible to it. And saying that they cannot adapt, the poor children cannot adapt to technology is, I think, is absolute, misjudgment. Any child can be adaptive to any opportunity given to them.
All right, we have to cut it now here because we're just running out of time. Thanks, Mom, a lot. Very quickly, Tarak, you want to add something?
I have just 2 sentences to say here. So one is that I completely agree. The only change is that we need to take it upon ourselves. Let the entrepreneur in ourselves rise to the occasion, step up, and create this project which will bridge the digital divide, right? And it is not only for students. This is a necessity for learning for anybody at any age. Internet access and device are necessity like food is, like anything else is. So let's make it as a priority for us and make it happen.
Excellent point. And I think this is driven very properly between Mom and yourself. It is very clear now, coming out from everybody, that it's the most essential basic necessity. All right, so we've just finished. And Sangeeta, unless you want to add something here, last sentence.
Yes, I just don't think it should be restricted to schools, because I always felt our libraries are not good enough. And we should be better equipped with libraries also providing the same content. Why only schools or teachers?
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of questions on the chat here, and let's start with the. I have to read them out because some of them are not just, and panelists can please read them also. I would suggest that we start from the top, which is from Valli Srinivasan. So he's just commenting that it was good tea break, 40 minutes academics, blah, blah, blah. And then let's move to, can people just write the question here because there's a lot of thoughts coming here.
I found that I would just like to bring up this because this might get
please.
lost.
Yes.
One of the parents texted me separately saying that all this is okay for little older children. What do the primary kids do?
Okay.
I'm not able to locate that exact question, please. But I mean, it's a valid point, I think. What is it that?
Yeah. So, yeah, over to you, Mom. You want to answer this, please?
Yeah, I would really love to answer this because recently we had actually done a poll on how children learn, and it was very shocking for us also to discover that the younger children, when we were exposing them to literacy classes, where they were just starting to get into the phonics and trying to develop a language for them. Talking about as young children between the ages of 3 and 6 years, they responded the best when they were exposed to cartoon films. So now we have children who are absolutely, say, children who are, who's a Kannadiga, have no exposure to any other language. She was exposed to some cartoons for a period of time in the classrooms, and the kind of sentences she can make, the syntaxes, is mind blowing. She talks like "ये मेरी पसंदीदा चीज है" और ये मेरी मतलब बहुत सारी चीज, what this kind of vocabulary is not there in their system. The kind of English learning which has happened through exposure in audio visual mediums to them have been mesmerizing. So right now, India have a lot of entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, who have really come up with excellent kind of materials, which, if being used in a necessary way, of course, without losing the fact that children of all ages and even adults need kinesthetic and cognitive skills, other skills together. But we cannot deny the fact that audio-visual mediums enhance the learning of small children too, and that's been observed and kind of.
Thanks, Mom. We've got many other questions coming here. One is that can you just mute, please? Just a minute. Yeah, muted her. What is the role of parents? We've not yet touched a lot about parents. So what should parents do in this change scenario? Parents are a bit confused. I'm getting a few questions from the parents that what is in it for us? How do we monitor? Do we monitor or just leave the children? Children get bored. They have backaches. And some people have written that how should the parents be involved? They're asking a question. So Tarak, would you like to answer, please?
Yeah, in the Delhi, what we did was for the primary school children, the lower age to primary and middle school, we have two problems. One is that the lower age, and secondly, not everybody has internet access all the time. So what we did was we sent them via SMS, we sent them activities to do with the children. For parents, to do activities, as Mr. Lola mentioned, all kinds of learning activities. And then they can also call a number where a story will be told to them. And then after the story, there is an activity that the parents are supposed to do with the children. So in terms of audio, we covered the audio part, not the visual part, but audio is there, activity is there, parents' involvement is there, and children learn something practical every day, which is not just from the textbook, but by doing activities, as Mr. Lola said.
Wonderful. Okay, so we've got one question which 2-3 people have endorsed. Is the $1 million question is that how much screen time is good or allowed? Should be allowed. Is there evidence that screen time makes people dull or is harmful?
My wife says yes.
Okay. Is there any other view? And maybe doctor, we can ask the doctor on the group. If you're still there, please.
Yeah, I'm there. The American College of Pediatrics recommends no screen time till children are of 4 years of age. And then beyond that, limiting to only 1 hour in the primary school in a day. But this is based on the evidence available in the US. But for India, we haven't done anything. I mean, here the weaning starts with screen time. So, what effect will it have on the overall cognitive development of children? We yet to figure out in India.
So no evidence till now. I agree
Not
that
in
I have
India.
tried to search a lot. There are a lot of conflicting evidences, and there is no proper research done on these experiments done around it. So we can't really say 1 hour, 2 hour, or 3 hours is good or bad.
I think NIMHANS have submitted a report to the government recently on the basis of which government had taken the decision, and the report talks about age group wise how much exposure the children should be given to. I don't know how they have come up with the details data, but then they have submitted a report.
Okay. Tomorrow they may have to retract it because once online education goes official, then they can't say 3 hours and 2 hours limits. All right. Is there, Soumya, did you spot any other question which we have not addressed yet?
Yes, so that primary school rate question was the one, because children do a lot of art and craft, and that probably is difficult to guide online.
Yeah.
And
okay, one person has written that privacy is not given to children and parents are adding to stress to the children. Maybe some examples he has. So,
I think that they do even without online, right? Most of the time.
yeah.
Isn't that the job of the parent?
Yeah.
No, but if I may just have to tell that in terms of policing, when it goes virtual, the student loses the confidence that he or she has on the teacher. So we'll probably have to find a balance of how much of policing should be done, because policing, first of all, is not something that I would recommend as a parent or a person related to education line. But please find a balance. Don't get it to a point where the student loses the trust on the teacher.
Yeah. I totally agree with Ms. Sangeeta Ravi. We shouldn't police kids, I mean, there should be a fine line drawn, between what is decent and what is indecent, and set up ground rules for kids to what is expected and what is not expected.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So we have just finished our time. 90 minutes was our time, and we've exhausted all the questions, and each participant, I think, has got their share of questions here, and everybody answered very well. Thanks a lot to the panelists who took out this time and the attendees who stayed till the end. I hope it was informative and there was something which you got out of this webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.